Aloha. Just making a quick video here. Wanted to share a little bit of a day in the life of some of the things we deal with in this business. I am at the courthouse right now, and I am filing an eviction. So yeah, it's been a rough month, man. It might sound a little bit silly being the landlord saying like I'm having a rough month when the tenant obviously is probably having a much harder time than me. Although I'm not too sure if that's the case, because they don't seem to really take this very seriously. I take it very seriously because, I mean, first off, it's food off of my family's table. You know, when a tenant doesn't pay their rent, and this is our flagship property, our most expensive property, the highest rent, unit that we have. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath house, split AC and all that stuff. Pretty, not newly renovated, but really, pretty nice condition. Like two blocks from Waipuilani Beach Park. It's a nice property, and so it's not like it's like a little studio apartment that's $1,000 a month or something that's not making much impact. It's our by far most expensive rental unit, and so not collecting that rent is definitely, we're feeling it. It does hurt, and we still have to pay the mortgage, property tax, insurance. We got to pay the trash, the water bill, the sewer, like everything. We're paying everything, and they're living there without paying. And I feel like they are, they care, and they definitely made some effort, but not what I would have expected. Like if I was in their position, I would be communicating with my landlord, letting them know like, hey, here's what's going on. I do know what's going on. 2 of the roommates moved out and moved to the mainland, and then so the 2 ladies left are struggling to pay the rent, but it still doesn't quite add up, because even then they should be at least able to pay half of the rent, and here we are at the end of June, and they have certainly not paid half of June's rent, let's just say that. And it's been ongoing for months now. Anyways, point is they are not, I've tried really hard to kind of communicate with them. I've hooked them up with rental assistance programs where, in fact, I did that 3 months ago. I was urging them, contact Family Life Center. If you're on Maui and you're in a tough situation, Family Life Center is amazing. They will help pay your rent. You have to meet certain qualifications, but you fill out an application, send them like your pay stubs and whatever, a couple docs they request. And I've seen them pay people's rent in full for 3 months or more. So that's an amazing program. Catholic Charities of Hawaii is another one. And I know, MEO, Maui Economic Opportunity, is amazing. A lot of landlords may not want to accept those programs, because if they don't pay all their taxes, right, then they're going to end up getting 1099, and they'll have to pay tax on it and things like that. But we don't care about any of that kind of stuff. We're like, taking care of our tenants is really important, and making a positive, impact as much as we can, using our business to do what's the saying? Do well by doing good. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I don't really care if it, first off, we pay all of our taxes, so that part doesn't matter. But even if it costs us more in taxes, if it saves that tenant from having to move, or especially from having to get evicted. But anyways, I was urging them to do that. I kept asking them, hey, did you apply? What's the status? Blah, 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 blah. And they were like, oh yeah, we applied. Like 2 months later, nothing happened. And now here we are 3 months later, and they're dragging their feet. And I made a phone call to Family Life Center, found out that, yeah, they basically were waiting for some Social Security document that they thought they, had to have mailed to them. So I call Family Life. Family Life says, oh, you can just go pick that up from the office. They'll give it to you the day of. So they've been waiting 3 months, and all they had to do was ask the right questions and take a little effort. So anyways, things like that are kind of disappointing. Like I said, if I was in their position, I would have been asking the questions and making the calls, and then I would have been telling my landlord, hey, this is what's happening. I'm waiting for this document. In the meantime, you know, this is what I can do. I can pay $500 this week, and maybe next week I could send $200. And, you know, at least by saying that and then follow through on it. And if you didn't send it, or if I didn't send it, I would text my landlord that day and just say, hey, listen, I told you I was going to send 500. The baby, whatever, the kid needed a root cavity or whatever, like, so, or I had to pay the cell phone bill, or it's getting shut off, so I only have $350, so that's what I'm sending. Just a heads up. Just communicate, you know, like that makes such a big difference. Not only did they, in this case, not communicate, but they went so far as to like make a bunch of empty promises. And they did, after I kept telling them, hey, this is important, you got to communicate, I need to have some kind of expectations. Tell me like just what you're hoping to do, what your goals are, and if it changes, just let me know. And they said, okay, we'll do that. I met with the tenant last weekend. I went down there to meet with her in person and like kind of explain the seriousness of the situation, and tell her I need this communication. And, you know, they said, yes, I understand. She said, on Monday, I'm going to have the rent paid in full. My boyfriend's paying it, so on and so forth. And I was like, are you sure about that? Because that's a lot of money for your boyfriend to just lend you. And she's like, promised me, absolute certainty, no question. He was doing it. It was going to happen. And then, of course, come Monday, that's not what happened. I also didn't get any explanation. I didn't get any, I got a text and they sent like a couple $100 and said, sorry, this is all we can do. But like no other explanation. In fact, not only did I not get an explanation saying, sorry, I thought, you know, he was going to send it, you know, help us. Turns out he can't, but you know, we can send you $200 now, and maybe like next week we could send $200 or whatever. Like just that we didn't get that communication, and it was shocking to me. And you know, at that point, this has been going on for so long that I was starting to lose my patience, and I'm like, we can't just let you drag us on. Like, you got to put your foot down at some point, right? Otherwise, people will walk all over you. And I know all of my tenants think of me as like really, really nice and treating them really well, and I take a lot of pride in that. I want to be the best possible landlord, but they also, you know, I worry that there's the possibility of them taking advantage of me because I am so nice. And, you know, like in this case, I should have filed the eviction, I don't know, probably at least a week ago, if not sooner. So, but, you know, I really, this is not what I want to be doing. And it's tearing me up because especially this lady's got 2 little kids. And they're running a serious risk of losing those kids to CPS, because if they let it get that far, if they don't move out, you know, at least go stay with a friend or something, figure it out while you find a place and get settled in somewhere you can afford. Now, they could lose the kids, and that could be beyond my control. If the sheriff shows up for the eviction and they're still there with the kids, I'm pretty sure that they will be taken to CPS. So that's really upsetting. I am having a hard time dealing with that and knowing that this is just something that I have to do. Yeah, it's tough, man. But you know, at the same time, I've gotten multiple reports from multiple different people about violence in this house. So as hard as it is to know that this process that I am involved in may be directly related to this mother losing her kids, you know, I'm also torn because it's not my position to make this judgment, but is that the right thing, right? Like, if there's violence, there's physical violence, loud screaming and cursing, and, you know, like, just, it's a bad environment, you know, like, from my understanding. I don't live there, so I can't speak in great detail, but I do have direct accounts of the things that have happened. And, you know, there's been cops called multiple times. You know, you're hearing the people screaming at each other, slamming each other into the walls, and then police coming, and one of the, you know, people having bloody faces. And meanwhile, hearing the babies crying the whole time this is happening. So pretty upsetting stuff. That alone, just, I don't know, it's tough. So anyways, just thought I would share this. This is, unfortunately, fortunately, this is the first time I've ever had to do this. I've never gotten to the point where I had to actually file an eviction. every time that I've had this situation before, I just work with the tenants and we come up with a solution, give them, you know, how much time do they need, how can we work this out so that you guys can, you know, get the money together to move out and find a cheaper place or whatever you need, and how can I help you guys, but also not like jeopardize and put us out of business and lose our income at the same time. Yeah, this is my first time dealing with this, and it's horrible being, you know, if it was a couple of guys that were just, you know, party guys drinking, smoking weed and just being irresponsible, it would be a lot easier. But just the fact that there's kids involved, you know, and a single mother thing makes it really tough. But on the flip side, the single mother refuses to get a job, you know, like it blows my mind. You know, she's doing all this complaining, and like all they do is blame other people. They're blaming me that they have to move out. I'm like, it's not my fault. I've done everything I possibly can to help them not get to this point. I mean, I was telling them, look, if you guys want to sublease, I'll let you rent out your extra rooms. You know, now that you don't need them, you've got this huge house you don't need, I'll let you sublease it so you can, you know, stay there and have a roommate. Or if you want to, you know, I gave them all these solutions that I didn't have to do, and it just like to try to give them a solution so you wouldn't be in this position. And they just had an excuse for everything. Everything was like, we can't have a roommate, we're too old for that, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I mean, you know, look, honestly, like, I don't want to have a roommate either, but if I was on the verge of eviction and having a roommate for 3 months would make the difference, I would have done that. And that would have made the difference. But instead, they had other friends come and stay with them who were also violent. There was many reports of these people fighting, throwing trash all over the property, cigarettes all over the floor, and not paying rent. So a lot of the stuff is just like, on one hand, really upsetting, and it tears me apart. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're not willing to go get a job to pay your rent, like everybody else does, you know, like, there's nothing I can do to help you. And you're not even willing to go to the rental assistance place to submit your application. So yeah, you got to be able to take a certain amount of accountability and a certain amount of action, and do something, right? Like, get up and go do it, make it happen. And if you're not willing to do that, it's a position where there's nothing I can do to help. So yeah, it's tough, man. But yeah, so going in now to file the summary, possession, and judgment, and we'll have a court date on July 3rd, which will be today's the 22nd, so it's about a week and a half. I'm really hoping that they will be moved out before the court date comes, and then we won't have to do the eviction. Yeah, if they're not moved out on July 3rd, we'll go into the court date. The judge will, you know, see what's happening, see that they haven't paid their rent and they can't prove any payment of rent, and he may give them the opportunity to pay their rent then and there, and, you know, have like 48 hours or so to pay the rent. But, you know, if they haven't been willing to go get a job this whole time and haven't been able to pay it up until now, I don't see that happening. So then what will happen is the judge will issue a writ of possession, which is the document that is officially a eviction. So I will be issued the writ of possession, which I will take to the property and say, you have to be out today. And if they refuse to leave, we'll call the sheriff. The sheriff will come and serve, you know, enforce the writ of possession, and they will have to, you know, if they still refuse, then he will physically remove them, which, yeah, it's hard to even imagine that kind of situation with the kids. So I really hope it doesn't go to that. I can't imagine that it would, but, you know, at the same time, a lot of the stuff that's happening, I never would have imagined, of this, you know, violence in front of the kids, not paying rent and not even, you know, making an effort, not being willing to get a job when you've got 2 kids that are about to become homeless. I mean, all this stuff just blows my mind, and it kills me to feel like, you know, the bad guy here, but yeah, like I said, my hands are tied, you know. It's like I led the horse to water, but the horse refuses to drink the water. There's nothing I can do. So anyways, just wanted to share. Overall, I love this business and I love my job and I love helping people, and I believe that I'm a really good tenant. A lot of my tenants, in fact, even these tenants, have been saying things like, up until I told them I have to file eviction now, but for the last 3 months, they kept saying like, okay, we're gonna look for a cheaper place, but we don't want to rent from anyone else. We love you. You're the best landlord ever, and we're so grateful for you. And we just, we want to, we want to rent from one of your other places that is just cheaper than this one. And it's flattering when they say that. But, of course, in this situation, I nicely told them without, trying to make them feel bad or anything. But there's no chance I could ethically, I could not, after knowing how their actions were in this situation, I can't possibly accept them in another rental unit. It wouldn't be fair to me, it wouldn't be fair to them, it wouldn't be fair to my business partner. And yeah, in the end, as much as this situation sucks, I also feel like letting it drag on would be more of a disservice to the tenants too, because the young mother, specifically in her mid-20s or whatever it is, she would, she seems to not understand how this stuff works. A lot of the comments she's made, and, again, her unwillingness to get a job, a lot of these things send the impression that she doesn't know how this works. And by letting her stay in this unit without paying her rent and falling further and further behind, digging a deeper and deeper hole, it's sending her the message, teaching her that this is how the world works. Like, you can just stop paying your rent and it'll be okay. You'll get a call from your landlord once a week, but like and that would not be a good thing for her, because the next place she moves to, they might not be so nice, and it could end up a lot uglier. So I don't know. I hope I'm doing the right thing. I hope I am, finding this balance between running the business, taking care of my own family, but also like not being the slumlord and not not being harsher than I need to be. So it's hard to know, though. I don't know. I've talked to a few people about this. Everybody that I've discussed it with is like, bro, you are way too nice to these people. They didn't pay their rent. You need to evict them, bottom line. And I, on one hand, yeah, I see that. But at the same time, I've been a tenant my whole life too. I am, even technically considered homeless in 2010. Like I like to say, I wasn't sleeping under the bridge or anything. So I was a very upper middle class homeless level. But I've struggled most of my life, and I understand the struggle. So I take that into account, and I think there's too many landlords out there treating tenants like they're just a number, just a dollar sign or whatever. And I want to, it's important to me to try to ideally change that whole perception and make the landlord a good guy rather than a bad guy. But if I can't do that, at least I can change that perception for our tenants. And I think I've done a good job of that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be these situations where things turn ugly. It's pretty rare, 6 years in this business and I've never had an eviction. I think that's a pretty good statistic. And we have 19 total rental units, so 19 different tenants, and this will be the first eviction. Now that's just a testament to the power of screening your tenants. I'm very thorough with screening. I call references, I call the old landlords, I call the employers, and I believe that that's the reason why I've never had an eviction before. But no matter how much you screen, sorry, I keep bending, my paper's blowing around here because it's so windy. No matter how much I screen, I think there's gonna be a time when some of them just slip through the crack, right? Like this tenant, I think they were totally fine tenants. They weren't great. Like they were pretty sloppy and loud and disruptive to neighbors, and little nuisances like that. But not, they paid their rent on time. Well, no, they were always late also. So they pretty much were trouble from the beginning. But they, not horrible. Like nothing that I would ever evict them over. They did pay their rent, and they were they're good people, but yeah, it just turned really ugly the last 3 months, and there was no real, there might have been some minor signs during the application process, but nothing really blaringly obvious because I chose them over all the other qualified applicants. So anyways, again, like I said, just thought I would share this and would love to hear your thoughts. And how would you handle this if you were in my position? Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Do you think I'm being too pushy? Yeah, I'm curious how everybody else feels. And yeah, thanks for checking out the video, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Aloha.